Waking up, reading the news, and this is just in. El Salvador president gave Germany the slam. He slammed Germany by saying that labeling the AFD an extremist organization. When are we going to stop calling Germany a full democracy? And so I'm looking at the comment section and I see the German people rise up, defending their nation. You know, like patriotism is strong in Deutschland right now. And they're like, no, you're a dictator. You don't get to lecture us. You have no idea what's happening in our country. You cannot perceive. You do not understand the wisdom of the Deutsche Volk. Our democracy is so strong, so powerful, that it even protects our very own citizens from voting incorrectly. Your little pea brain just cannot comprehend the political philosophy that we're creating here. And apparently, he's not the only one. Another person, I don't know if this one is a dictator or not, because I understand, like, look, if you're a dictator, you can't talk, right? Like, if you're a thief, you can't point at someone else stealing. That's illogical. If you're a person that is a smoker, you can't tell other people not to smoke. That is illogical, right? Like, you cannot observe reality if you partake into it. But Marco Rubio, can Marco Rubio observe reality? Can he call things out, or is he also a dictator? Well, apparently, the foreign ministry of Germany is hitting back. They're getting aggressive over there. They're getting into a fighting situation against El Salvador and now against Marco Rubio for daring to criticize the infallible political system that Germany has created, which is to extract, right? Like to pump the wealth, to take from their citizens, to extract the cash, to pump that wealth from the German man, because the German man is probably an imbecile. He doesn't know how to spend the wealth. He is greedy. He only thinks of himself and his family. He is an immoral actor. But the politician oozes with compassion and empathy, and he knows how to redistribute that wealth. So, for instance, he gives it to a hotel owner. Pays indefinitely, gives it to Pfizer, right? Like, gives it to proper companies, like, redistributes that wealth in a normal and compassionate and dignified manner. And then when the taxpayer complains, he uses censorship. Censorship, the weapon of democracy, the weapon of the free, the just countries on earth. They use censorship in order to make sure that the people do not talk amongst each other, that they do not organize and go like, where did our money go? Because then you can have something like is happening in the United States. A horrible nation overseas, a nation of despair where they created DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. Like, that is against nature. That is satanic. That is something that shouldn't exist. Like, what do you mean asking the government what it does with the people's money? Like, what type of system is that? Like, why would you want to emulate it? I mean, that could probably destroy the European Union. Can you imagine if that thing was to come here to actually ask the politician, hey, what are you doing with the money? Like, absolutely vile and disgusting. And so we need strong democracies to protect us from what's happening in the United States. And so, as you can see, they're justifying why they need to crack down on the AFD. And by cracking down on AFD, obviously, you know, the people that vote for the AFD are the problem. Like, they shouldn't be represented. They should be taxed without representation. And so it boggles the mind why Marco Rubio has a problem with this. Like, why would an American look at taxation without representation and have anything to complain? Unless he's a fascist. Like only fascists don't support taxation without representation, right? And here you have, it's all about human dignity, you understand? It's about dignity, because the AFD is a threat to the country's democratic order, because it, as a political party, it creates agitation. It breaks the harmony, right? So like the nation state in a democratic country, it has one way of thinking, one way of life, everyone is equal under the thought, not under the law, right? Like everyone is equal in thinking. And when you have like a different opinion, an alternative, well, it creates ongoing agitation. You gotta crack down on that shit because it takes away the dignity of refugees and migrants. And like the entire purpose of German society, every single soul in Germany has to dedicate their entire existence. The primordial reason is to preserve the dignity of the AFD. No, the AFD is below that dignity. Above it is the refugees and the migrants, right? So this is the explanation. And apparently Rubio says that Germany just gave its spy agency new powers to surveil the opposition. That's not democracy, it's tyranny in disguise. What is truly extremist is not the popular AFD, which took second in the recent election, but rather the establishment deadly open border immigration policy that the AFD opposes. Germany should reverse its course. This is what Marco Rubio has tweeted on the Twitter. And Germany is fighting back. Like as I said, they're getting a little bit aggressive. Like they're hitting back. The decision is the result of a thorough and independent investigation to protect our constitution and the rule of law. The Foreign Office wrote on Friday that it is the independent courts, the almighty judges, that will have the final say. We have learned from our history that right-wing extremism needs to be stopped. Right. Let's talk a little bit about history. I'm not that smart. I'm not that educated. I didn't learn that much history in school, but after I finished school, I wanted to catch up. And what I think, again, this is just my opinion, my 2 cents. What do I know? But what I think caused the rise of the Nazis, not in 100%, but like maybe it had something to do with it. Just a little bit to do with it, not a lot, but like maybe it was the Weimar Republic, in the sense of you have extreme poverty, you have massive inflation, people are getting taxed, the way of life of people is becoming uncertain, they're worried about not being able to get jobs, they're worried about their family not being able to get jobs, and worse off, their leaders don't listen. And maybe I'm wrong when it comes to Weimar. Maybe that's like just a one-off, but you look at the French Revolution, you notice the same thing. People are extremely poor, and their leaders don't listen. In fact, their leaders are being extremely wealthy, and they like to party. So you notice that in Weimar as well, right? Like the leaders, they're extremely wealthy, they party, the people are really poor, no one is listening to them, everyone is marginalizing the people. Same thing in the French Revolution, same thing in the Communist Revolution in the Tsarist Russia, right? You kind of notice this interesting trend in human history that maybe the reason you have authoritarian governments and the reason you have violent revolutions that lead to authoritarian governments isn't because the establishment didn't censor enough. Isn't because the establishment allowed the people to have a say. It's quite the opposite. It's because the establishment cracked down on the people a little bit too hard and neglected their own population. They didn't care about inflation. They didn't care about the fact that people are noticing, hold on a little bit, why is it that my father had a better lifestyle than I am? Why is it that my grandfather had a better lifestyle than I am? Why is it that things are going up rather than, right? And so people become disenfranchised, people become hopeless, hopelessness turns to despair, and take into account that the Nazis, again from my historical knowledge, didn't actually win by going to the ballot box. They didn't win by getting the vote. The AFD is trying to get the vote, and they're not like the Nazis. Like, let's be honest, if you actually compare the AFD with some Eastern European parties, like you compare it with right-wingers in Poland, or you compare it with Viktor Orban, you kind of notice that, hold on a little bit, they're not really that extremist. Like, their policies aren't really that insane compared to the Republicans in the United States. And so, like, you gotta wonder, like, how is it that these other countries, like the United States, for instance, don't have to ban people from running to office. How do they manage to have a democracy? Like, this is what I find interesting, is that the Germans are lecturing the US about democracy. The US had a democracy way before Germany, and the US didn't have any Nazism. And so, if anything, the Germans should have to ask their allies in the United States, how do you guys do it? Like, maybe, because again, you're admitting that you did fuck up. You're admitting that you did have the Nazis coming to power. The United States didn't have Nazis coming to power, right? Like, they didn't have an authoritarian government. In fact, their citizens have weapons. No one is rising up. There's no violent revolution in the United States. And so you gotta wonder, like, how the fuck do you guys do it? You don't even use censorship. You got free speech in your constitution. How do you manage? And since you're not asking that, one can question, well, hold on a little bit. Like, are you really interested in preserving democracy, or are you interested in preserving your seats? Are you interested in preserving the grifts? Are you interested in preserving the elite's way of life rather than having democracy? Because in the United States, notice how even a prisoner can run for office. It has happened twice in the history of the US, and it could have happened a third time if Donald Trump was convicted. Like, there have been cases in the United States where, yes, like, people behind bars, I think, like, even in World War II, this was a situation where a person was arrested because he spoke against the government. During World War II, you weren't allowed to do that. Like, they restricted free speech. They even had the Ministry of Censorship. It's when the framing, shouting fire in a crowded theater became a thing, if you guys remember that. That was during World War I. And so, like, the person did run for office from behind bars. Now, he didn't get elected, didn't manage to win, but he could run. And if people voted for him, he could pardon himself. And so the idea that, oh, yes, we're a democracy. Well, it's a different system, isn't it? It's a completely different system, because in the United States, you can vote for anybody. As long as they're a U.S. citizen, as long as they were born in the United States and they're of age and they're in their mental sanity, the people can vote for anyone, because the people are running the country. It's not the judges that are running the country. It's the politicians by representing the people, but at the end of the day, the people are electing their representatives. That's an actual democracy. What we're seeing lately in the European Union is like, okay, well, people have a right to vote for certain things, but if they vote incorrectly, the judges step in. And then, like, I'm sorry, but now we have to make a distinction between these two political systems, because it's not like America. Like, I think America is a superior system because it existed for far longer than any democracy in Europe. And somehow they managed not to have Nazism. Somehow they managed not to have communism. So maybe we should actually start learning from them rather than criticizing them. I'm just saying. But in Europe, like we notice in France, Le Pen is now in legal trouble. Oh, okay, so interesting. Just as she's about to rise in the polls, just as about her party is able to potentially replace Macron. Oh, just so happens, well, if you want to vote for her, tough shit. If you want her to represent you, well, the judges are saying, nay. Okay. You have other places in Romania, also the judges are stepping in. All right. Now in Germany, the judges haven't stepped in yet, but like they're getting closer. They already talked about banning the party. And it's usually like the parties that are close to winning, right? Like, it's not fringe parties that just pop up or anything like that. No, it's like parties that are extremely popular, representing a huge chunk of their population. And no one is saying, but like, what about those people that require representation? Like, if you're a German person that doesn't like the European Union, are you allowed to exist? Like, are you allowed to live in Germany if you don't like the European Union? Why? For whatever reasons. Maybe you don't think it's democratic enough. Maybe you'd like a reform. Maybe you'd like to be able to vote for the next Ursula von der Leyen rather than have her appointed. Maybe you don't like the fact, well, that the European Union was created as an open market, as a trade deal. It wasn't created to govern over every single aspect of the member states to the shape of a banana. Are you allowed to have these thoughts in Germany? Like, is it okay? Are they banned? Is it hate speech? I don't know. But like, can you express them? What if you don't like the taxes that are coming from the European Union? You're like, well, we're taxed enough already, aren't we? Like, we already pay VAT taxes, we already pay income taxes, we already pay taxes for the roads, we already pay carbon tax, we already pay all this shit. When is it enough? Like how many things does the European Union require of us until it's satisfied? And then the bureaucracy, it's like, okay, we already have GDPR, we already have the Digital Service Act, we already have this, we already have that. Like when is it enough? What can they say? All right, we got enough legislation now. Because like the way things are going, 20 years from now, like it's going to be double the legislation, right? And so like the question is like, when are they going to be satisfied? They say, all right, we legislated enough. And so like if you're a German person that's dissatisfied, okay, are you allowed to have these things? Or if you express them, you're a problem? And if you're allowed to have these things, are you allowed to have a representatives to represent these things? You know, like maybe there aren't that many German citizens that have like an anti-EU sentiment. But then if that's the case, surely their party isn't going to get a lot of percentages, right? And so they're not a problem anyway, like the system works as intended. But if they are a lot of people, are they allowed to actually have representatives? Or are they supposed to just pay taxes and shut the fuck up? Why isn't this type of conversation expressed on the German media? Why is no one on television just having these questions? Are they illegitimate questions? Are they not important? Like, can we not have like some sort of civic dialogue about how a nation should function? I'm concerned because like Germany is a strong nation in the European Union. Its influence can be felt across the continent. And so like I need to wonder now, okay, well, if this is how the system works, if this is a democracy, well, is Russia a democracy? Like, can Putin, you know, instead of doing just assassinations and shit, just outlaw any party that's against him and then claim, well, you know, this particular party, I think it's influenced by the West. It's under Western influence. This type of guy got some money from the EU and that type of guy. So, like, the entire party is illegal. Would that be a democracy? Huh? Like, if the Russian judges crack down on and Putin goes like, well, it's up to the judges. I mean, I you know, like, this is an independent system. The judges are going to look into it. If Viktor Orban does the same, right? Like, if Viktor Orban outlaws the party that's against him, with similar things, you know, like he can say, well, the opposition party is going against the dignity of the Hungarian people because they want to open the borders and they want the taxes of our people to be given to other individuals without the people's consent, blah, blah, you know, like some rhetoric. He comes up with some rhetoric. Would that be a democracy if Viktor Orban starts banning his opposition party? If China does the same, if Chairman Xi all of a sudden says, you know what, let's change our system. Let's allow opposition. And he allows an opposition at the moment they become close to the CCP. And the moment they threaten the CCP, well, then you start the crackdowns. And then you start arresting people. Then you start, convicting them under various pretenses of corruption, of whatever the fuck. Would that be a democracy? No? Like, is this how democracy is actually supposed to go? Because if that's the case, I have a simpler system. Why complicate ourselves with this charade? Just, have the politicians that are in Germany now, right? Like, they're decent folk, except the AFD, of course. They're bad. But the Greens are some of the most dignified and decent politicians in human history. The SPD and everyone else, right? Just have the chancellor become the Kaiser. No, seriously, like, think about it. Have the chancellor become the Kaiser. Just crown him Kaiser. All the other politicians become aristocrats. And they're the only ones that are allowed to own property. And then everyone else rents from them. Like, the German citizen just rents property from the aristocrats, which are the elected politicians. And then you don't have any more elections, because as we noticed, elections are dangerous. The Russians can interfere on TikTok. You can have certain politicians that offend the dignity of migrants and all the other things, right? And so, like, you can get rid of all of that. It's extremely environmental friendly, because now everyone rents from the aristocrats, and the aristocrats get to decide what can be rented. Like, maybe the aristocrats don't want you to drive a gas car anymore, right? So, like, it's extremely good for the planet. It's extremely good for making sure that the Russians don't interfere and that the migrants are respected, right? Isn't this like a much better system? I think you need to bring back the Kaiser. I definitely do, right? Just bring back the two-tier system where you have the aristocrats that operate under one law, and then the peasantry and the common folk under the second law. And then there you go. All the problems, all the issues have fixed. And maybe then America can learn something from you. At least you go back to your heritage, because Europe is the continent of kings and monarchies. Let me know what you guys think. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.